Hello and welcome. I'm Kate.
And I'm Emily, and this is Beyond the Neurotype,
A podcast that explores what it's like to be human affirming, regardless of labels, considerate of every person's individual needs, and allowing us to, ideally, understand what is behind every individual's actions, choices, and needs.
We do this with curiosity and love as we explore these individual and unique experiences that are rich with challenges, growth, and grace.
I'm Kate, a mental health social worker and synergetic play therapist. I'm the co-founder of the Village Therapy Hub. I'm a mum to 2 adolescents, and I love understanding and exploring what is happening beneath the surface for children and adults, and what behaviours are communicating to us. But let me keep it real. Much like yours, my life is a roller coaster. So I also understand the complexities of being a carer, the challenges of the day-to-day, and I won't pretend it's all enjoyable.
I'm Emily, a neurodivergent mum to a beautiful autistic girl and wife to a wonderful autistic man. I'm passionate about celebrating neurodiversity and creating a community where people are seen, held, and loved for who they truly are. It is my hope that as you listen to the stories of our beautiful guests, you feel inspired, validated, and supported in your journey.
This podcast is recorded on the land of the Dja Dja Wurrung people. We offer our heartfelt gratitude to the traditional custodians and elders, past, present, and emerging, for continued opportunities to learn, reflect, and grow.
Today, I am so excited to introduce our guest, Sarah. I've known Sarah for nearly 20 years, and she was one of the first people I wanted to invite here on the podcast, as there's few people I know that lead such a unique, authentic, and interesting life. Sarah has had her own TV show. She's created a hair straightener line, been an influencer in the motorcycle scene. She's a photographer, yoga instructor, and a bookkeeper, a keen gardener, a vegan, and has completely given up alcohol. She's also a mum to a beautiful 13-year-old, and she's my sister-in-law. For as long as I've known Sarah, she's forged her own path and never been afraid to go against the grain and do things differently. So I'm really excited to chat today. Welcome, Sarah.
Oh, thanks, Ceci. Wow, when you put it like that, it definitely sounds like I have 7 personalities.
You can see why after I read that bio, I was really excited to talk to you, Sarah, because I was like, there's so many things.
Yeah, there's a lot.
How are we going to contain this? And that will definitely be part of the job, is containing this.
Oh, we'll see how we go.
We've been having this really wonderful pre-conversation just before hitting record, because I've never met you, Sarah, and so it was really nice to get just this really small snapshot of connection before we started. But you were just starting to tell us about your journey into Kundilini yoga practice, and I'd love, maybe we could start there.
Okay, cool. Yes, I'm moving into my Kundilini Yoga teacher era after several opposite eras in my life. Spirituality and yoga has always been a thread throughout everything in my life. The first book I ever read was Mind Power by John Kehoe when I was 15. And ever since then, I've had just this natural curiosity into how the mind works, what more is out there. And as I went through my 20s, what's wrong with me and how can I fix it? So I've always had a real thirst for knowledge and wanting to know more. And when I came into my first yoga practice, I think I was about 19 years old. It was after maybe 10 or so years of dancing. So there was an element to just wanting to keep stretchy, a little bit fit. And so that was something that I've always had running in the backdrop of my life. there's been a couple of times where I've gone to do my yoga teacher training and I've always talked myself out of it. My patterning coming up, stopping me from making decisions that really would be super beneficial and get me ahead doing something I'd really like to do. However, after 4 years feeling really isolated and really after COVID, 2 years in Melbourne lockdown, I moved out to rural Victoria, which we really just wanted to have a sea change and grow this organic garden and just have this, like, you know, it's the fantasy lifestyle I think everybody had on their mind during COVID. You know, be free, live a life outside of the city. And while it had its many benefits, you know, there's a lot of real difficulty with it in terms of how isolating it can be. And I think also, you know, the community we moved into was, you know, they were really welcoming and wonderful. But for someone like me who has pretty diverse interests and a very fast brain, sometimes I found it hard to find people to really connect with, but not on fault of their own, but more because I think I started going on a very insular journey inward over COVID and then moving out to the country. There was literally paddocks around our house. So, you know, like being around people it just became fairly few and far between. And so hence, when my daughter went off to school, my partner was working as a truck driver doing, you know, very, very long hours, hence the downward spiral started to take hold, which I think is a fairly normal thing when people are in those isolating sort of conditions, you know, whether it may be just they don't have family around or friends, or, you know, there's just some sort of like external conditions that stop them from being able to connect on a regular basis. But for me, I knew that this was a really important time to really allow myself to go to the bottom of where I needed to. So during this time, it was just a really difficult time. And from those really low places, I still had this thread of yoga. It was enough to keep me going most days, some days not. But yeah, it got to the point where we really needed to look at our lifestyle and what was happening. And, you know, and so on a dime decided to take a trip up to Gold Coast, Queensland, and look at a bit of a sea change, which is where we are now. So with a big flip into a completely different, you know, community and lifestyle, and definitely a lifestyle that was way more attuned with who I truly am, you know, being by the water, being by the hills, very outdoorsy sort of family and person I am, being in nature. My mood started to lift quite a lot. And I was very, very, very blessed to have a yoga studio not far from where I lived, where I was able to access an incredible community of yogis and teachers. And through finally starting to find the thread that kept me in those darker places started to become a bit more like a rope, pulled me in. And with that, I found a bunch of like-minded people and, this beautiful practice of Kundilini Yoga, which when I went and did my first class, I was just like, what is this? Like, this is it. This is it, right? There was something about the technology and the actual style of yoga that completely calmed and regulated my brain. And after being completely dysregulated for 2 years or maybe a bit longer, just the swings and the moods and the rumination and the worry and the anxiety, to have that lift for an hour or so in this class, I just wanted more of it. And I started to go on this deep dive into the practice. And from here, this time, a series of wonderful events actually led me to finding the Kundilini Research Institute training, which I did recently in October in Bali for 3 weeks. And yeah, I am now on my way to becoming fully certified in March, and I am teaching now at the same place. So it's amazing and wonderful how quickly that full circle came round. So I think like sometimes we start things or have little seeds way early in life, which give us those little kind of like, that could be good, but there's always reasons why we don't do what we do. You know, family, work, patterning, trauma, other things are always just so much more important. But I think when we actually allow ourselves to follow the breadcrumbs to where we're supposed to be, it's amazing where we can end up. So I'm currently here.
And it's amazing, isn't it, how there's an alignment of time, circumstance, like everything has to fall into place for the breadcrumbs to be followable, like otherwise we start following them and then we go, oh, hold on, no, that thing over there, I'll come back to that trail later. I'll just step over this way for a second. And then a forest grows between the trail and us and we're left going, where was that trail? But
yeah.
So it does take the right set of circumstance for that to happen. And often we have to, forge a whole lot of other stuff to get there. But that feeling of I've landed, like you would know it, don't you? Like it's like, oh, this was what I was trying to get to.
Yeah. And, those other paths which, I definitely identify with having a few things on the go at once. They all teach us something,
Yeah.
For example, when I was really into my motorcycling journey and I would do a lot of track days on my track bike, the focus needed to be able to, really get around a track safely and fast, which is what I like, fast brain. You really need to be able to focus, and in those moments you just you find this 0 point and everything just sort of comes into this flow. And I think that's what I've been chasing this whole time, is just that moment where you just don't think of anything else but exactly what's in front of you. And in Kundilini Yoga, it's known as Shushama, that kind of 0 point where it's just a point where everything is just ready and pregnant with possibility. And it's that really quiet place that we find when we're in that flow. So, yeah, I think I've been chasing that.
Kundalini Yoga. Can you? Yeah. Oh, I totally. That sounds like I shut my eyes when you were talking and was like, oh, imagine that space. But what is Kundalini Yoga before we go any further? Because I'm interested to know what that is, what it looks like.
Kundilini Yoga is a technology where we combine postures or asanas, which is what you would find in your normal, hatha yoga, yin yoga type class. So we combine that with mantra, which is the chanting, the use of the voice in order to, mantra actually means mind, tra means directional focus. So it's about using a repetitive mantra to focus the mind. And then, postures, mantra, meditation, which, you usually will find in a yoga class as well. And then we incorporate breath work. So it's really using these four pillars to activate different parts of the body through the meridian sort of systems and the chakra sort of systems, to send chemical messages to the brain to allow us to regulate through the release of various hormones in the pituitary pineal gland. So the thing I really enjoy that I have learned about Kundalini Yoga is also, like, mainly the proof is in the pudding with me. Like, if I can bring my mind to a point of 0 now, anytime I really need to, like, that is just that is like my experience and where I teach from now. But yeah, it's just a beautiful amalgamation of science and spirituality. So even for people who, might be a little bit skeptical of, does it really work? Or, why are we sitting here like this going, Om Namo, doing all these funny like chants and looking like crazy people wearing all of our white stuff and white clothes and things like that. There really is a science behind it. And the more that I read and research it, the more and have my own experience to back up what I'm reading, I'm just like, wow, this is a really amazing technology. And especially for people who with neurodivergent brains who are looking to maybe move away from the the Western medical sort of system and prescriptions that are often just given sometimes alongside therapy and things like that. Something a little bit more sustainable. Well, this is a completely sustainable way of regulating your entire nervous system. So yeah, so it is different in that it incorporates those other sort of elements together. And yeah, it looks a little bit different to normal yoga for people who have not had much experience there. So yeah.
No,
It
that's
sounds
awesome.
like magic.
It is magic. It really
Yeah.
is. It's crazy. Mm.
And I know, Emily, I'm so aware that I'm talking a lot.
No, I'm
I
enjoying it.
I'm so excited. But I know like the power of any version of yoga. Like for me, like yoga has definitely been like an anchor point for me through times when things are really, really hard. And I have gone through periods of my life where I haven't had the luxury of being able to leave my house for yoga. And so like online yoga has been enough of just, a short piece in my day where I can ground, connect with my own breath, and move my body a little bit. So I can only imagine with, a deeper practice and another way, the Kundalini Yoga, which incorporates all of the other bits as well, how that could level up. I've already seen what a base level of online yoga can do.
It's interesting you say that because leading up to me going on this immersion, I was doing a practice once a week, exercising and sort of really trying to build my strength up for the course because it is, like we were doing 14-hour days, getting up at 4 a.m. for a 2.5-hour sadhana and then just classes and back to back up until about 6:30. We
Whoa.
had our dinner and then we had to be in bed at least at about 8:30 to get up at 4 o'clock the next morning. So I knew it was going to be a very rigorous training. But there is a marked difference in my emotional regulation from before I went on that course to now. Like and I'm not the only one. Like I have several friends who I speak to from all around the world now, and it's just so cool to have these connections who have had the crazy, like not the craziest, but just the really unique problems and issues with them coming to the grips of their own neurodiversity. And they've all said that this practice is something that has just completely changed them. One of my good friends the other day said she cannot believe it, but her handwriting has even changed. So it's neat and tidy. And she said, my whole life, I've never had neat and tidy writing. And now she does, And to me, just listening to the benefits from the people that did the course and really immerse themselves in the practice, it really is quite phenomenal. I even talked to I talked to my daughter the other day and I said, do you notice? Because I have my experience of me, right?
Yeah.
All of me's, all 6 of them. But the people that you live with who have the real experience of who you are, they see things that you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I said to her, I was like, do you notice a difference, like just with how I am and your experience of me as a mum, since I've come back and been practicing, my practice and things. And she's like, oh, Mum, I don't mean to be rude, but yeah, like it's just so different, The other day, for example, so here's a clear example. went to Coles shopping, and of course I leave my phone in the supermarket, you know, typical SBH, my dad calls it Sarah's been here stuff, leaving stuff everywhere. And so I left my phone at the checkout and, you know, got home, realized I didn't have it. Old me would have lost it. I would have just been like, oh my God, my phone, like someone's going to like take it and go through it and da, 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 and just like 0 to 100, just freaking out, like, oh my God, my password to my money, you know, just that usual response. Yeah. And it was just so weird. This time I just sort of turned around and I said, okay, well, Raven, can you just check where it might be? Because she can see my location. So she checked. She's like, yep, Mum, it looks like it's still at Coles. So it's like, all right, well, can you give them a call and just tell them that my partner will be down to pick them up? And they both kind of looked at me and they're just like, is that it? Yeah. So just little things like that are really noticeable. You know, the sort of the before the practice and after the practice. But yeah. So you're definitely doing a regular practice and really immersing yourself you'll start to really develop some new neural pathways, I think.
I'm curious about whether this immersion that you've had has brought about other lifestyle changes other than just the yoga practice, or has it impacted your life in other ways? Or
yeah, 100%. So here's a really good example, right? When we were doing the course, we had to do a couple of exercises for a very long period of time. One of the exercises we needed to hold it's called Sat Kriya. So we had to hold our arms up straight like this while sitting on our knees and chanting Sat Nam, Sat Nam. Okay, so you can imagine that your arms, after a couple of minutes, they start to ache. Yeah. So we had to do that for 62 minutes, right? Yeah.
Wow.
And in probably at about the halfway point, maybe about 20 minutes or so, something happened in my mind that I just will never forget. It was almost like I said to myself, I was like, you have faced so much worse than this in your life. And it was like there was just this resilience that came through my third, like it felt like it was just through my third eye, and I was just staring down the challenge, and I was just like, this is just going to be, I can do this. This is so easy compared to what I've already been through. And I was able to really straighten and keep my arms up for that period of time. It didn't hurt, which was really weird. Like my arms didn't hurt. Like I couldn't feel anything, but they didn't hurt. Maybe the blood circulation had cut off by that stage. I don't know. But I just held that pose a little longer and a little longer and a little longer and a little longer. And after the 62 minutes, when I dropped my hands down, and by this stage at the end, I was actually laughing. I was like, yeah, this is so easy. You know, it was in a completely different place, like just accessed a completely different part of my brain that I didn't even know existed, this mental resilience, which is probably found a lot with, like, not saying I'm a high performance athlete, but, you know, people who are athletes that can access this determination and resilience. And and then just fast forwarding to when I'm back. So to say, like, answer your question, how, like, has that impacted other areas of my life? So I went to Soak the other day. So it's been a couple of months, 3 months since I did the training. Went to Soak, which is like a couple of different like pools, you know, so you've got the warm one and then a slightly hotter one and then a slightly hotter one and then you've got a freezing cold one at the end, right? It's really, really cold. So I sort of jumped in the cold one and I was like, bleh! And I got literally jumped out. I'm like, not going back in there. Nah, not doing it. No way. I hate being cold. It's the worst. And then I was like, I have to do it, you know, even I'm going to do it for 1 minute. I'm going to use my training and do it for 1 minute. And so we went into the car after we did the hot pools, we got to the end and I just took a couple of moments to really steady myself. And I just came to that place, that Shushma place, that quiet 0 point, and climbed into the pool and submerged myself. And I just sat and was able to focus on this point. And I couldn't feel anything. Like, I could feel like it was cold initially when I got in, but after a little bit of time, I just was at that same point when I was doing Sat Kriya, where the mind just was completely clear and focused, and it was like nothing could stop me. So after 4 minutes of sitting in the pool, I opened up my eyes and I knew it was time for me to get out. And yeah, just once again, really reiterating how a regular practice like this has just created these pathways that I can access when I need them. And I can access that now as well when I'm having a fight with my partner, which is not very often these days because I'm emotionally regulated. Or, you know, maybe I'm standing in the line and I'm frustrated about something, you know, just being able to access this inner peace. It's just an incredible tool for emotional regulation and, you know, being able to do things and find that flow, you know, the piece we were talking at the beginning with the motorcycle, the flow, that point. Being able to access that on demand is something that, you know, people really can get, anyone can get if they have a regular practice. Not always just Kundalini, but I think anything that they love and that gives them that determination and mental discipline, which is something that I never would have really done. I struggled to stick to something for longer than 2 weeks. My hobbies would change all the time. As you can see, I've had 65,000 different careers, like, you know. So this is a way of really building a mental discipline in yourself to do things that are really important. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just I've got so many thoughts. I need a moment of Kundalini to ground, to focus myself, to be able to put any of my thoughts any of my thoughts into something constructive. But what I keep thinking about is like just that we all come across challenges all of the time, and we get to that point regularly where it's like, I just need to do the next thing, like just put one foot in front of the other, just keep moving forward. And when we don't have the emotional regulation alongside that, it very quickly moves to a place of functional freeze because we are frozen. Our nervous system has just stopped responding to the threat that it can feel in our environment, and we go, but we have to function through it. You know, if we stop and freeze and don't do anything, we won't survive. So our body knows that it has to keep functioning. And so many, you know, people that I talk to, and I've experienced this myself, end up living in a state of functional freeze for really long periods of time. And sometimes that then flips into a burnout, and that's how we then recognize we were even in functional freeze. Like, it's just something we often have no awareness of. And what you're talking about is the process of being able to keep on stepping into the challenge and keeping on going through the hard stuff, but doing that while connected to self. And the power of staying connected to self while we do that is huge. You know, like what that does to our brain compared to when we stay in functional freeze and keep doing it is so different. The neurons that are being wired, the program that's being set in the brain. And do you see that? Like, do you think that's the difference in you now? Like, were you potentially a functional freeze person before and now you're conscious?
I was always worried about making the wrong decision. So making a decision was very difficult for me. And also being a householder, being a mum, you know, there are always 65,000 decisions that need to be made, little ones every day. So you also get that real decision fatigue, I think. I think a lot of modern householders have that. But the functional freeze would be attributed, in my case, to, you know, making the wrong decision, worry about what other people thought, you know, that kind of like rejection, sort of sensitivity as well. Yeah, but definitely making the wrong decision, and that would have me jumping between the two, like this. So before I actually even decided to do, when I decided to do the yoga training, I still have an email in my draft box to my lead trainer Satsiri saying, "Hi Satsiri, I'm really sorry, but I can't come." Right, and then I actually got distracted in that moment, and I didn't send it. You know.
Yeah.
And leading up to going on the whole course, the cost, the time away from home, is this really what I'm going to do? Am I going to be able to make this sustainable? You know, it was just like this every day, all day, just trying to work out, is this the right decision? You know, and something I read in the Aquarian teacher handbook that we were given that I found really, really fascinating was, I think, like, and this is what they say, is like, society doesn't need to make more decisions. Like, we are bombarded by hundreds of thousands of marketing messages every day. You know, we're just oversaturated with, you know, choices and thoughts and different things in front of us. Like, late stage capitalism is it's just really crap for our mental health, you know, and just in general, I think. But we don't need to make more decisions. We need to make better decisions, regulated decisions from a place of connection, like you were talking about, Kate, like the mind, like being connected to ourselves when making a decision, especially a hard decision. So, yeah, I think it's a nice way to sort of come back from our current society and just be like, meh, like, it's all just so lame now. Like, all your little marketing messages trying to get me to buy shit and do stuff and be this person and have this thing and da-da-da. Like, it's just so lame. I want to come back to making good decisions based on feeling good. And the second part of what I've added to making decisions is a manifesto. So I started writing a manifesto of things I will not do. So, for example, I will not cancel my course, or I will not leave my relationship, or I will not take on anything other than XYZ. Because my brain has got that impulsivity that it wants to keep changing and coming up with different things all the time. And that's exactly why my life, like the bio that you read, is all these different things, because it's my brain like impulsively grabbing onto the next thing that I want to do, right? And yes, it's got me here sitting in front of you in a podcast because of that. Like, that's still got a lot of benefit, but it does get exhausting and draining when you're not really moving forward. You're sort of just kind of diverting to all these different areas. So
like bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, bouncing around. So having a manifesto for me is something I do now, where it's kind of like it helps me stay deeply rooted in the decisions that I make when I am emotionally regulated.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that's something I could definitely benefit from a fellow bouncer that likes to grab onto lots of ideas and, oh, maybe I'll do this today, and oh, maybe I'll be a doctor next week, and I'm going to have a vintage clothes business instead, and yeah.
I think you're as bad as me.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, and I'm not far behind either of you, trust me.
Maybe we'll start a podcast.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, isn't it, that like, but there's, you know, to give credit to the purpose of the bouncing around, like
Absolutely.
It feels safe sometimes for people's brains to actually change things around, because actually it's scarier to stay in something and commit to something and like push through when it starts to get really difficult, and to, you know, do all the obstacles. That it's actually safer and easier to just keep coming up with new ideas.
It's interesting you say that. So there was a teaching that we had about this. It's actually called Shakti Pad. Okay, so Shakti Pad is when you sort of you go from, there's a couple of different pads before Shakti Pad. So I can't remember them off the top of my head, but essentially you go through the honeymoon stage of starting something. So like, I'm going to try yoga. And then it's like this honeymoon stage. It's like, oh, this is wonderful. I get to buy the outfits and I look great and da 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 da. the rose tinted glasses are on, the initial interest is peaked, and you're like, okay, cool. And then you sort of get to the next stage, which I would consider myself in now with Kundilini Yoga, is the apprentice stage, because I'm not fully qualified yet. I get that in March. I'm a student. I'm learning. You tend to have a lot more of an open mind. You're really excited about what you're learning, and you're not really stuck in any of your ways yet. And then hence you get to Shakti Pad. And I think I've been in Shakti Pad for most of my life. It's when you've done something like a practitioner level, like yourself, Kate, and you've done it for a while, and you start to get bored, and you start to get a little bit, you lose the drive to be a student still. You kind of think you know everything. You're sort of like, you get over it. And this is the part where you need to sort of learn. And this is what you're talking about, the discipline of commitment, which is very difficult, right? Shakti Pad. Going through it and holding it, like holding what you're doing a little bit longer, learning everything you can to be the best. And then if you're able to come through Shakti Pad, you come to Sahij, which is mastery. Right? It's just, it's you. It becomes like, like when you see someone who's been doing something for a long time, but they've just got this real generosity of spirit. They can share what they know. They're not holding or harboring onto like information because they're scared that you're going to like beat them, like it's just like a master that sort of walks the earth. And I think it's a really good analogy for life, because especially for me, like in particular with relationship, I really struggle with commitment. Well, a lot of things I struggle with commitment. It's not my vibe. I'm like freedom fighter over here. I wouldn't even have a telephone contract for many years because I'm like, no, I don't want the commitment. So that will show you. But I think, so I think for these days, because as well, we've got so much choice in front of us, like we were talking about, the marketing messaging, the instant Uber Eats, swiping left or right or whatever it is on Tinder. Like we've just got so many choices and decisions in front of us that it's just so easy to just flick something off and try something completely different because, it's not really serving me, or, I don't like the way it feels, or, I'm getting bored of this, right? Yeah. But I think like it's almost like a bit of a nod to the old days in our parents' generation where, they stayed in together for their whole life, or they paid off a house slow and steady, and now they've got something. Do you know what I mean? I think it's like, getting through Shakti Pad to Sahij Pad is something that it's just a knowledge to apply to your life when you really want to achieve something or really stay in something. It's about really holding it just a little bit longer in those tough moments. And this is what Kundalini Yoga has taught me, how to do that, how to hold that pose a little longer so that I can drop my hands and have a big smile and be like, wow, I did that. That's Sahij Pad, that gets you to that mastery stage.
Do you find that there's a place for that kind of bouncing as well? Like if I look back on my journey, I'm really grateful for that experience of the, moving between different hobbies and interests and businesses and different things. And, because I wouldn't be here without having those experiences. Do you find that, or do you find that you kind of just wish that you came upon this sooner? And
I think there's a difference between trying a few different hobbies and seeing where you go and running from something. Running from the uncomfortable feeling of sitting with boredom, or, not liking how something feels in your body. It's uncomfortable and painful, like, exercise or training for a marathon, so you drop that and you start something different. There is a difference, I think, when, and yes, like I think we need to try a plethora of different activities to find what our purpose or, our path is at that time. But what I have learned now, looking back, exactly like what you have just said, Emily, is that everything that has happened in my life has brought me to this moment here with you. So there's no reason to feel any regret or worry or anxiety about where I am, because I'm sitting here now on a podcast with one of the most amazing people that I love and a new friend, talking about some really important topics. It all takes you somewhere. I think the problem that I had with accepting that was that, I was always butting heads with society's ideology of who I should be. I should be married. I should own a house. All these like pillars of success that is really deeply ingrained in us from young women. And it's only really been in the last short while that I'm just kind of like, well, actually, I really enjoy, having the freedom to bounce around and go live where I want. Like, within reason with family commitments and things. But yeah, so yeah, to answer your question, I think there definitely is a place, because it gets you where you are right now, and you probably learned things and have the skills to come and sit and talk on this podcast, because when you had your vintage clothing business, you were talking to people and coming out of your shell, and we all learn these different things through the different hobbies and things that we try.
Yeah. I think looking back to what you're saying about always butting against what society wants you to be, like for as long as I've known you, I feel like that's been a big theme around you, and not wanting to go with the flow of what we're supposed to do necessarily. Where do you think that came from?
It's interesting. The first time when I thought about this the other day, the first most important thing that I did was I changed the spelling of my name when I was an intermediate, which is probably about 12 years old. It was the beginning of a long journey to find my sense of self. And my sense of self was very fragmented, because, like a lot of other people, I didn't really feel like I fit in all the time. Like I could fit in very easily anywhere, but I didn't really feel deeply rooted in myself. So I think the first time that started to show up for me was definitely around sort of 11 years old. Maybe the bodies actually there. This is usually the point, and Kate, I'm sure you'll be able to attend to this. Like, I think that's the time where we actually start to drop. Like as a child, we don't live in our bodies, and we start to come down into our bodies and start to get self-conscious about our bodies. We go through adolescence, we have all these physiological changes, and we start to get sensitive and feel like really unsure of ourselves. And if you pay attention, you'll see kids up to about sort of 10, they're just frolicking around, they don't care, they cause bloody messes everywhere, like they don't have any regard for what they're wearing, they don't care, they're just like, yeah, yippee, I love life. Like they're in a different realm of mind to us, because when we reach that adolescent stage, we drop into our bodies. And I think because I dropped into a body that I didn't feel comfortable in, like a mind that was very busy, had a lot of ups and downs going on, that's when I started to sort of like take on all these different little ways of trying to find who I really was. I hope that answers your question. I think I might have gone on a tangent there.
No, it's really interesting. I didn't know that the decision to spell your name differently came at that age, and obviously that was kind of your first defining.
But it was actually just through the reason why I did it was because in my classroom there was like 6 Sarahs.
Yeah.
And so when we all did our artwork, no one knew, the teacher didn't know whose was who. So I changed the spelling just so that mine could be different and recognizable, and like I don't know whether because I have this like deep-seated need to rebel against what people expect of me. I don't really think I'm really a rebellious person. I just think I've just been trying to find, that sense of self And I've kind of searched all around for it in all different little crevices and all little different places and hobbies and interests and people and, locations and things like that. But it's only really been since I've, again, come back to this regular practice of, yoga that I'm able to just really find out who I am. And I think also more recently, 3 years ago, giving up alcohol completely has been a big leap into the direction of finding who SARAH actually is and not SERA or any other plethora of funny names that I've had and nicknames over the years with my, as I said, different personality types. So, yeah.
It feels to me like when you give that example of like the art room at 11 years old, that there was this like knowing of your uniqueness and looking for that to be found. And you've been doing that your whole life in a range of different ways. But, even just needing to change the spelling of your name so that your artwork could be seen as yours and not get confused with the other Sarahs in the room. It was this like, I have a core that is unique, like see my uniqueness. And then that's kind of just shown up in this range of different ways through your journey.
Interesting. It's a really nice and interesting way to look at it. A very positive spin on something that I might have seen as just a way to find different validation through external sources for a long time. So maybe that sort of inner knowing of there is a uniqueness there. It's a really lovely way of looking at it. I like that.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that's a really lovely way to start wrapping up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's a lovely note to end on. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
that
you.
Conversation was beautiful and gave me goosebumps at times and so sat in my soul. I really appreciate your time.
Sarah, if someone wants to join your yoga class, how can they do that?
Well, I'm still an apprentice, but you can find me. I'm only on Instagram at the moment, which is at Kundibird, KUNDIBIRD. So I'll be there. And as I continue on my journey with teaching, I'll put up different things there, but that's where I'll start for now. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. Beautiful conversation.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Sat Nam.
For more information on today's conversation and guest, head to the links provided in the description. Please like and subscribe to keep up to date with more content, and it helps us out with the algorithm too. Beyond the Neurotype is not a licensed medical or mental health service, and any information or advice given is general in nature. Please seek professional help if anything mentioned in today's episode has raised questions or concerns.